Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a knife video for you. What we're going to do today is have a bit of a discussion, bit of a comparison between two very popular, very well-loved knife companies, and that is Zero Tolerance and Cold Steel. These happen to be two companies that I like an awful lot, that I've talked about an awful lot, and in fact, this whole video comes out of the video that I did last week talking about whether or not Zero Tolerance had jumped the shark, kind of talking about what I like and don't like about the company and where I hope they'll go in the future. But in that video, I kept thinking to myself, I wanted to compare some Cold Steels. I wanted to bring Cold Steel into the discussion on a number of occasions. And I thought, no, Kevin, just focus on what you're focusing on and you can make a second video. So this is that second video, right? Both of these companies are companies that I like. And certainly both of these companies market themselves as being heavy duty, tough, durable cutting tools that are just reliable and ready for anything. And I like that kind of knife and I like that kind of marketing and I'm drawn to those kinds of tools. And so for me, this is a pretty obvious comparison. Now I know there are significant differences and we'll address that as well. But the way we're going to approach this is we're going to compare features, we're going to compare materials, we're going to compare designs, and we're going to compare value. And we're going to try to make an assessment. This is going to be of the whole company, okay, not a particular model. And so at the end of the day, we'll sort of have say some general statements about these two companies and how they compare with one another. And I'll try to draw a conclusion that may not necessarily be one's better than the other, but I think I will be able to say, if this is what you look for in a knife, or if that's what you look for a knife, this company may be more well suited to you. Now, if you're like me, if you're an enthusiast, you're probably going to buy a bunch of both anyway. So this is really just for fun. So let's start off in my list with features. So what kind of features are we going to expect? And some of you will know right away which features you like, and so this will be an easy distinction for you. But from ZT, all right, you're going to get mostly, not all, but mostly titanium frame locks. Most of them are going to have bearings and a flipper tab. Again, most, but not all. You're going to get some liner locks, all right, the 0909, the 0350, a few others like that, but it's mostly going to be either a liner lock or a frame lock, all right. It's going to have bearings most of the time. Sometimes you're going to get washers. You're going to get a lot of contoured handles, although not all. There are a few slab sides that are fine. All right. And you're going to, now the clips are pretty variable. So the main features you're going to be looking at from Zero Tolerance is you're going to get titanium frame locks, sort of modern tactical folders that are made out of, that are a little larger and a little heavily built. Okay, that's going to be the primary features that you're looking for, and they're going to have all the modern accoutrements that we expect, like lock bar inserts and washers and bearing races and that kind of thing. All right, on the other hand, when it comes to Cold Steel, you're going to get one big feature consistently, and that is going to be the Triad Lock. Most Cold Steels are going to have this particular style of back lock called the Triad Lock. It is a fantastic lock. All right, you're not going to get many assisted models. Most of them are going to have thumb studs. You're not going to get any flippers. I think they might have one flipper out there or two, but then they kind of go away from the Triad Lock. They do have one assisted model. I did say, this is famously an assisted knife, and a lot of ZTs that are assisted, people wish they weren't. So it's hard to call that an actual feature. All right, most of the time you're going to get sort of slab-sided G10 like this, where it's just two flat scales of G10. They do have, of course, some contoured models, and those happen to be some of my favorite models as well. But the sort of list of features from Cold Steel is not quite as long, because Cold Steel isn't quite as concerned about giving us all the modern features. They're just concerned about giving us sort of a functional, reliable cutting tool, and that's a little bit different. I will say one thing that Cold Steel does consistently, and that is mess up their clips. Cold Steel clips are notorious for being difficult to get in pocket, and then just as equally difficult to get out of pocket. And while they're being difficult, they're also going to tear your pants apart. So that's that's a feature we ought to think about. We could name some negative stuff from zero tolerance as well. All right, in terms of how those features translate into knives that you're going to enjoy. All right, if you're someone who wants that nice stiff D10 and smooth action, ZT is going to be your go-to. Right, you're dealing with bearings, you're dealing with those nice refined actions that are really really enjoyable. So for fidget factor, ZT is definitely going to be your go-to. For some of those features like lock bar inserts and bearings and some of those other things, something special like the kickstop lock, the kickstop flipper tab, you're going to have to go to ZT for that kind of thing. On the other hand, cold steel, all right, they're going to definitely, when it comes to locks, have the stronger lock. The Triad Lock is very, very strong, and that's sort of its claim to fame. All right, you're going to have mostly from both good ergonomics, good functionality, good longevity. All right. The cold steel in terms of features is going to lean more to the utilitarian side, while the ZT is going to try to deliver some higher end features that maybe you wouldn't be used to seeing on standard production knives. So that's how the features are going to stack up. Moving on to materials. All right, this one is fairly obvious. ZT is going to tend toward higher end materials. That's kind of how they started things off. We've got this 0303 with titanium frame lock here, contoured G10 and contoured titanium, really, really nicely done. But ZT started off aiming at the higher end of the market. All right, so you expect to see some slightly more some slightly higher end things on the zero tolerances, such as carbon fiber, higher end steels like M390, 204P, X8, 20 CV is what I was trying to say there. I don't know how I kind of put all the steel names together. Um, and so you're going to get some of that higher end stuff from zero tolerance. On the other hand, cold steel, you're going to get S35VN most of the time these days. Sadly, the CTS XHP, which was phenomenal, and cold steel he treated it really well. It's gone. I hope it comes back. I loved cold steel CTS XHP, and it's a real loss that they don't have it. You will get some higher end stuff. So the Formax here, of course, is done in 20 CV, and that's really, really nice. It also has some titanium along with the G10, but this is a rarity for cold steel, right? You're not going to get a lot of the higher end materials from cold steel most of the time. S35VN is primarily going to be their steel, as we've mentioned. I do love the addition of the AUS 10 steel to some of the budget stuff. And of course, that's going to be, as we talk about materials, cold steel is going to have some more of those budget materials. You're going to see some Zytel, you're going to see some aluminum, things that you don't see quite as frequently in zero tolerance, although they do often, ZTs will often have like aluminum components, maybe the backspacer or something like that. All right, so overall, the higher end materials are going to belong to zero tolerance, and the more budget friendly functional materials are going to go to cold steel. This might be a little different discussion if they were still using CTS XHP. Not that it's going to be as good or better than M390 or its equivalents, but that would have been that'll come into to play more as we get down into the bottom of the value discussion. Now, so that's the materials part. What about design? Well, of course, zero tolerance started as sort of a production design collaboration with Ken Onion and Mick Strider and Kershaw. All right. And that whole sort of partnership between production and design, this is a Les George here. That has been sort of the mainstay of zero tolerance. Now, of course, I've got the 308 here, which is a bit of a departure in that particular area, but okay, throughout their sort of history as a company, one of the things they've been really, really good on is working with a bunch of different designers and making designs that we're fans of and designers that we know of as knife enthusiasts available. So RJ Martin and Jens Anzo and Les George and of course Dmitry Sinkovich, who seems to be their go-to guy right now, Rick Hinderer. So lots and lots of designers. Cold steel, not so much. All right, you're not going to get a bunch of different designers. Now, I will say, if you're an Andrew Demko fan, you are going to like cold steel. You're not going to get an Andrew Demko from Zero Tolerance. And I am definitely an Andrew Demko fanboy. If really, if I was going to own custom knives, there are very few designers, a few Canadian designers that I would want to own, but Andrew Demko would be on my shortest of short lists. Where, frankly, there's not a lot of designers that I really, really want, but Andrew Demko would be one custom knife maker that I would be interested in owning some knives from. So, all right. Well, I am an Andrew Demko fan. If you want the versatility of being able to get a bunch of different designers under one label, you're going to be looking at Zero Tolerance. However, if you're an Andrew Demko fan, and if you look through the Cold Steel catalog, so many of their knives, but a few standouts, obviously the 8010 and the Formax, as we've talked about, the Talwar, the American Lawman, the Ultimate Hunter, all fantastic knives. Now, I have to say this. The Recon 1, which I happen to have here because I feel like it's like the standard bearer for cold steel, I would call the 0562 sort of the most widely appreciated knife from Zero Tolerance. I don't have one of those here with me, but it's probably, of all the cold steel knives, I like the Recon 1 a lot, but it's not one of the prettier knives. It's not one of the designs that really stands out to me as really, really fantastic. I would lean more toward the 8010 and the Formax in terms of really, really great designs. So again, Zero Tolerance offers many designers, and I think you're starting to see a trend here, okay? They offer many, many designers at pretty reasonable prices. Now, they're not cheap. I'm not suggesting that at all, but if you compare, if you go out to try to buy a Les George Custom, you're not going to get one for a couple $100 the way you're going to buy this. And the performance and the materials on this are close enough that you feel like you're not getting shortchanged on the experience. Okay, I know I'm their current catchphrase or whatever is experience it. And I think they do deliver a pretty awesome experience if you're a fan of owning different knives. Now, on the other hand, Cold Steel has, of course, all of these amazing Andrew Demko designs. And if you're a big Andrew Demko fan, like I am, you may own a lot of Cold Steels just for that very purpose. The fact is, though, they don't. Whoops, sorry guys, I'm throwing some other stuff into the frame here. Cold Steel does not do the number of design collaborations that Zero Tolerance does. It's not really their thing the way it's Zero Tolerance's thing. Moving on now to value. Now you would think this would be obvious because Cold Steels are just cheaper, all right? And it's true that if it's just a matter of dollars per performance, Cold Steel does a fantastic job. Like I can think of the Code 4, the American Lawman, the Ultimate Hunter, even the Recon 1 to maybe a slightly lesser extent, but it's still pretty good. Like those are phenomenally good knives that come in right around $100. And they're not just kind of good, they're spectacular. Like they're truly fantastic knives. Even the Broken Skull we could throw in on that list too. If you want something slim and reliable that blows away most of what's available that's in similar size and a similar form factor, like Cold Steel just does a phenomenal job. All right, so value easily goes to Cold Steel with the one exception that they don't always offer the stuff that's going to appeal to a knife enthusiast, someone that follows different designers, someone that's interested in higher end materials or higher end features. That is something that a lot of people clearly, okay, given that ZT has been pretty successful, are willing to pay for. All right. So while Cold Steel offers just the straight dollars to performance value, ZT offers value in terms of, man, I would love to own a Sinkovich design. Man, I would love to own a Rick Hinderer design or an RJ Martin design or a Jens Enzo design, but I'm not going to buy one of their customs, but I can buy a Zero Tolerance that's really well put together for, between $200 and $300. And really, they've had some cheaper ones as well. Knives like the 0200, like the 0630, like the 0909. Great knives, still designed, still knives from really, really well done designers and extremely well implemented by Zero Tolerance, but they're going to cost you a little bit more in terms of getting your hands on those. So in conclusion, can I really say that one of them is better? Well, let's put it this way. For my non-knife friends who just want a really good knife, I'm going to recommend Cold Steel every single time. all right, without hesitation. And probably the American Lawman is by far the knife that I've recommended the most out of all the knives that are available. Cold steel, I mean the Code 4 would probably come in second, and then we can then after that we start moving into other companies. So that I think definitely has to be considered. For the person who just wants a reliable cutting tool, cold steel is really, really, really tough to beat. However, for the person who's an enthusiast, for the person who cares about high-end materials, interesting designs, some variation, for the person who wants the drop shot action that's going to come from a knife like this, that's where ZT really shines. You're still getting a good utilitarian cutting tool, but it's also coming with a bunch of high-end features. And yes, you have to pay a little more for those features, but a lot of people are clearly willing to do that. And I think it makes sense, right? Would I try to argue with you that this knife is every bit as hard use and bomber as the Formax? No, I wouldn't try to argue that at all. The Formax is definitely the harder use of the two knives. This does not want to sit here. Okay, no question, the Formax is the harder use of the two knives. That said, are there other things the 308 brings to the table that I appreciate? Absolutely. Okay, so that's how I would, and I think that serves as a pretty good summary of this whole discussion, right? Yeah, cold steel makes these awesome heavy duty users that just cannot be beat in terms of value for dollar, but zero tolerance gives us some other things and provides value in a different way. There you go, guys. That's my overall discussion. If I had to pick one over the other, like you can never buy another either ZT or you can never buy another cold steel, that would be a tough go. Do I get to keep the ones I already have? I don't know, guys. Really, I love both of these companies, and it's hard to come down solidly and pick just one. I do appreciate probably Cold Steel's value for dollar a little bit more because I like that sort of everyman knife type of approach. And so let's call it Cold Steel by a hair, but I love a lot of ZT knives as well. All right, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out the channel sponsors down below. That's a big help to the channel. Click on those links. Use those discount codes. That does help the channel a ton, guys. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for watching, and I'd love to hear your comments down below. We'll talk to you soon.